everybody, welcome back. So another one of my tutorials as well. So thank you, firstly, thank you so much for the comments that I've had. It's been fantastic on the various different kind of platforms. Comments that I've had like on my YouTube channel now as well, which is awesome. So all of these tutorials as well, because they kind of get lost in threads, don't they really? You can find them if you look in the search bar for the platform you're on. But if you go to the Academy Creator, you will be able to find all the different tutorials that I've done in the past as well. So I kind of wanted to put them in a centralised place so they don't kind of get lost and you can find the bits that are more relevant to you. But I will pop a link in the bottom of this kind of thread as well when I'm popping it on there so you can find it more easily and then pop it in like you're saved or something like that as well. So yeah, so thank you for that, and thank you for everybody that's obviously been messaging me as well. That's been awesome. We are going to look at manuals today, so I am just going to go into my slide share as well, obviously to give us something a little bit more visual to kind of work from. Just to make life a little bit easier, doesn't it, really? So part of the Educate and Inspire series, obviously, as well. So we want to kind of get straight into this, really. What makes a good manual? Well, I mean, it is different for different people, it's different experiences, but it's the content that's going to be in there. That is a very big kind of part of the content that's kind of going to go into it. It's how accurate it is as well, how diverse it is in terms of its broadness of its teaching, and the kind of the context that it's kind of in with as well. And it needs to be quite manageable. You know, these need to be documents that people can come back to time and time again, refer to when they've forgotten something, if they haven't done something for a little while, you know, suddenly that treatment kind of gets booked in again with the client, they need to be able to come back to it and refresh themselves as well. And it needs to be interesting, it needs to excite them, it needs to make them enthusiastic about the learning as well when they're coming into it. So it needs to have all those kind of different parts in it. You kind of think like some of the manuals we've probably had in the past, I mean, like almost like dissertations, and you know, there's some of them are just so full and it's really hard to find the information you're after as well. I like nice clear headings and sections, I like it to flow. So really also, you know, you need to bear these kind of things in mind about kind of the usability, I guess, for someone while you're working. One of the things I can't press enough though is looking at the National Occupational Standards as well. So you need to make sure that you are in line with the National Occupational Standards if it's available. I will say if it's available, because not everything possibly that you teach as all these new treatments come online will be available in the National Occupational Standards, but they are your basic kind of benchmark for most foundation learning anyway, and things that you can certainly build upon. And I think that's a good kind of thing to build your manuals on as well. So the National Occupational Standards are statements of standards of certain performance to be achieved when someone is working in a functioning workplace or a salon, and also it has the specifications in there for the underpinning knowledge and the understanding. So what theory must they learn as well to perform this treatment well? So we use that quite a lot in our teaching, particularly in FE. We use that quite a lot. And also it is there to perform like kind of a practical assessment checklist and things like that as well. So it's really good for employers to have something like that to kind of come against when you're working. So for us over in the hair and beauty and barbering and nails and like sort of spa therapy kind of services, our kind of person who go to the National Occupational Standards is Habia. Okay, so you can go onto the Habia's main website and they will give you not only a link to the National Occupational Standards as a definition for themselves, but they've also got them broken down into what the standards are for hairdressing, beauty therapy, nails, lashes, so on and so forth. So what they define really is our good practice in our performance, really. They are the benchmark for competence when you're teaching in further education, so MVQs and VRQs and BTECs and such. So it is that kind of main kind of key component in all of the qualifications, really. It's what our qualifications are built around, and it's what companies like BT-CT and City Guilds and ITEC and such will build upon their whole qualifications from this. So Habia kind of will dictate that sort of National Occupational Standards for the benchmark, and then BT-CT or City Guilds will go away and they will break that down into the format that they want to do in terms of teaching it and assessing it. and how they're going to guide their centres for that as well, in terms of how the assessment process is going to work. So they might slightly differ, but they all come from the same place. So, you know, almost doesn't matter which way you go with your qualifications, I guess, to a certain degree, is because they're all going to be marked against this benchmark as well. The National Occupational Standards are actually public documents, so anybody can get hold of them, anybody can have a look at them. They're freely up on Habier's websites as well, and also on the national occupational ones as well. So they're really good for individuals to look at, employers to look at, and people that are in education and training as well. You can look at that at any point and refer to that. So you can use that, your basic standards, to help build your manuals and help build your courses and your course design. And obviously, you know, the reason why we want these, obviously, is they're going to specify the standards in which someone needs to perform their work to, in which they need to achieve their work, what knowledge they need to have, and what skills they need to have to perform effectively in that particular service that they're doing. So what should you include in a manual? Well, in my opinion, and this obviously is my opinion, and obviously there's more that you can add as well, but my opinion, a good manual will have an introduction to the course and subject area. It will also have the history of the subject, if that is particularly relevant. I like to know where something's come from, how it's developed over time. A lot of the holistic therapies have developed over many, many years, if not hundreds of years or thousands of years, when we're looking at certain subject areas as well. So I think the history is a really good, interesting kind of part to have. Obviously, things like contraindications and your contractions, the ones you're expecting to see and the ones we're not expecting to see, and what to do about that. Obviously, things like relevant aftercare for your clients, the remedial actions, and what sort of adverse reactions and effects people can have, and what needs to be done about that. Obviously, things like service procedures, so, you know, step-by-step instructions of how to do something, or different options of how to do something, you know, like if it's a manicure, like what's a basic manicure to like a deluxe manicure, for example. Theory on the actual service itself, so the kind of the technical theory of, like, you know, why do we use, you know, cuticle cream, for example, or something like that. You know, what is a massage medium there for? You know, it needs to have all the details of, like, you know, the theory that goes to the actual practical side. We need to explain the tools, the equipment, we need to explain the products and the usage. We also need to explain how they need to set up for the service and the treatment area. So as many pictures as you possibly can provide would be really good for that. Obviously the adaptations to the service, and also kind of how to price that as well within those sort of adaptations. Also include like your basic cost to perform it as well. That always helps people when they're trying to price something in terms of getting their benchmark right as well. If they know how much it costs to do a service or a treatment, and then obviously they can add on their things like their rent and stuff like that as well. If they know how much it's going to cost them, it helps them to see how much their profit margin is going to be as well. Obviously, a super important point as well is going to things like the anatomy and physiology, and that does need to be recapped as well. Even if you've got a certain level of expectation for someone when they come in, they might not have used that for a little while, or they've got used to using layman's terms with their clients as well. So you need to make sure that you've got the anatomy and physiology in there as well. Also, what's quite important is having your insurance requirements as well for your clients, so for your learners, so that they know exactly what it is that they've got to do, how easy is it going to be for them to get insurance for them to do their clients as well. So that makes a really kind of big difference with it. Obviously, they need their sort of general information about sort of how to present themselves, present the area, their hygiene, their sterilisation. You need to give them some hints and tips really on problem solving, you know, what problems could occur, and then how can they overcome some of that as well. I always think pictorial evidence is really good, so like your befores, your durings and your afters, showing your step-by-step, also almost like a testimonial of the treatment as well. I think that's really kind of beneficial, because don't forget, you're still, whilst they might be on the course, you're still selling this to them as well, and so they need to be able to kind of be enthusiastic about that to basically upsell that then to their clients. So I think adding pictures wherever you can, making it suitable to explain some of the theory, showing them the setups, the equipment, or the variations in equipment as well. You know, if there's like, you know, several pieces of tool that do the same thing, I generally like to kind of include that, because I like to kind of show them. I like people to make their own choices in something, and usually 9 times out of 10 I've usually got some of that stuff myself, because I usually like to make sure I have everything as well. I am a little bit of a shiny object kind of person, and then obviously details about how to engage gain their certification. So whether they've got to do their case studies, if they've got an examination coming, they need to know that stuff. And there also needs to be like an area where at the end of the session anyway, you are testing the competence, even if it's just a quick quiz or something like that as well, and it's not their official examination or their official kind of testing or case study. You need to kind of assess as you're kind of going along and kind of do something final at the end of the day. So you can just see what things you might need to kind of mop up with them as well, or where you might need to extend them. And then also details about how they can further progress. So what's the next step? Always be thinking about what's the next step for them. So maybe they've done things like basic facial or something like that. You could be then discussing some slightly more advanced facials with them, and what the next step is going to be for that next kind of progression level for them as well. And it might be that they have to have a period of time of say 6 to 12 months after they've done their initial learning. But it's always good to be looking ahead as well, looking at that next step for them and not just kind of leaving them to it. And then also, I always think it's a really worthwhile subject really to kind of add additional context around it. So you don't need to just stick to, for example, what the National Occupational Standards say. I always put far more information in there, I guess, sometimes than what they need maybe for an examination, but I think it puts it in context as well. So you could be teaching about, say, lash and brow, for example, but there's no reason why you can't briefly discuss other lash and brow treatments around. So let's say you're teaching them tinting for lash and brow. There's no reason why you can't then discuss maybe henna or maybe the brow lamination or microblading and things, you know, and discussing what each one has, what each one's place is in terms of the industry. So they actually can make more of an informed choice about where they want to go to next, but also they can answer those questions as well. Quite often clients are quite savvy these days. They hear these things and they want to know exactly, you know, what is this other treatment? And, you know, they might just be starting out in their lash and brow, but they do need to understand things that are coming up. You know, the same things like lash lifting, for example, it's very popular, and they might just be embarking on their journey. So they need to understand what lash lifting actually is. Whilst they don't do it yet, they need that context as well. So sometimes it's not even just context about the treatment that they're doing, sometimes it's a context about the area that they're doing as well. So that is something you need to kind of bear in mind. Obviously there's tons of other things that you can kind of add into this as well, but I think most of all you need to make it as interesting as possible. You need to make it as relatable as you can to the subject area as well, and put it in context. And you've also got to be extending their knowledge further. So there's quite a lot really to kind of fit in that. I know this is kind of, I guess, one of my short ones, isn't it, really? I can talk for England. I'm trying not to if I can, and try not to kind of overwhelm you too much. But obviously this is a very big kind of subject area, and it's a little bit suggestive depending on the areas you're teaching, what you're going into, as to how much theory and things like that you need to kind of put in there. Personally, I like to break mine down. I don't really like it all in one if I can help it. I actually like to have more general information about how to set up, get started, you know, what I kind of call my foundations sort of stuff, you know, even basic kind of hygiene and sterilisation, the stuff that has to come up in every single course and every single manual, I like in a separate manual for them. I like my anatomy and physiology in a separate manual as well for them as well. So then it becomes one of them just about pure about the treatment. And I'm actually a really big fan of giving them it to them early and having like a pre-read as well. I actually really quite like the pre-read kind of thing. That works very, very well for me. Stops the overwhelm on the day and allows my learners just to concentrate on the practical elements and the testing side of things when they come in, because they've done a little bit of that work, pre-reading kind of work beforehand. And then we've got some things to kind of have a conversation about as well. But as ever, obviously, any questions or comments, feel free to pop that in the comments below, or you can PM me directly. That's absolutely fine. I don't mind that. You know, we've been doing that before as well. So hopefully that's been of interest to you, and hopefully that's helpful and helping you with a few ideas of what to include in the manuals. And if you're not aware of the National Occupational Standards, then do have a look, obviously. Have a look up on Habia. And you can certainly find, even on places like VTCC and City and Guilds, you can get the syllabus downloads on those and have a look at them. You don't have to be a registered centre for that, so you can actually get the syllabus and see what's being included in the courses as well, and that can help you build your manuals, because it's basically their way of printing out the National Occupational Standards, so you can use that to map that over. So if you're going to run something even as simple as, like, say, like a manicure and pedicure course, you can access this information quite freely and quite easily. I mean, if if you're getting stuck on anything like that, feel free to PM me on that, and I'll point you in the right direction, and I'll certainly point you in the right kind of areas and for links and things like that, particularly on VTC2's website I'm quite familiar with. It takes me a little bit longer to kind of get used to City and Guilds because it's been a while since I've been on there. But that information's there for you, and I think you'll be underselling yourselves and underselling your students and your learners if you're not trying to put everything you can into that. And if that does mean that your course needs to be that little bit longer, then that may be something you might want to consider, is to make that a little bit longer, maybe add some pre-reading into it, make sure they understand there's going to be homework and things like that as well. And I'm a big fan of doing case studies or post-course examinations as well. It depends on the subject area. I have a good mix of the two really with all the courses that I offer, but I'm quite a big fan from kind of doing that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to leave you to it. You'll see more of me this week. I'm going to do a few lives and things like that as well in the groups. So yeah, just let me know if you need anything else. I'm here for you. That's fine. And have a great day. Have a good week.